Hi, this is Majnu, and here is a game from round 6 of the Chess Olympiad. And this time I've chosen for a game from the women's tournament, and it's from the match between Azerbaijan and the Ukraine. With white pieces from Azerbaijan is playing a chess player called, I hope now that I pronounce her name correctly, Kayala Isgandarova, and with black from the Ukraine, Anna Ushenina. White player is rated 22.05 and the black player 24.33, so a difference of more than 200 points here, and it's a very interesting game, and I think it's also quite instructive as well. We see a variation in the Sicilian defense that is very uncommon, so perhaps you find this interesting to look at. Let's see. White opens with e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4. Now so far very well known moves, but now white doesn't retake with the knight on d4 but plays queen takes d4. A very unusual way of playing this. Well, the most logical move right now is to develop piece, gaining a tempo with knight to c6, and now white plays bishop to b5. With bishop b7, again the queen on d4 is threatened, and white takes on c6, b takes c6, and well, we could say, why did white give up the bishop's pair just like that? Has now no majority anymore in the center, and well, there is a compensation, and that is that white has more space and that the position is still quite closed. It's not easy to make use of this bishop's pair while the position is still closed, but the main compensation for white is that white is much easier for white to develop its pieces at the moment. Now here white decided to try to build a kind of a bind with his pawns by playing c4, so trying to prevent a freeing move like d5. Now e5 is played, and the queen goes to d3. Bishop to e7, developing knight to c3, and now h6, a move that, well, I don't really see the necessity of playing h6 here. Probably black wanted to play knight to f6 without being bothered about bishop to b5 or knight to g5, but I don't think it's really a necessity to play here h6, but well, it was played in the game. h3. Now bishop to e3 and queen to b8, attacking the pawn on b2, because we can say that this is actually the only half-open file directed to a weak pawn on b2. We have of course also the d file, but this d6 pawn is at the moment quite well defended, so black can try to use this half-open b file to attack the b2 pawn, so white plays rook to b1. Now knight to f6, continuing the development and ready to castle, and here white plays the move h3, castle kingside, and b4, advancing this pawn that a few moves ago was a weak pawn. Right now it's a potential pass pawn that perhaps can advance to b5. What black did here in this position is strike in the center and trying to get rid of his weakness on d6, potential weakness, let's say, but at the moment d6 is well defended, but he advanced this pawn to d5. Here white played c takes, d5, and black retook with the c pawn, and at this point white played the move bishop to c5. Now let's have a look what would have happened if white would have taken e takes d5. Or perhaps you would like to do a little exercise and calculate for yourself what happens if white here now takes e takes d5. You can pause the video if you like and have a look. I'm going to show you the moves now. If e takes d5, then e4 is strong. Now why is this move so important? It's forking queen and knight, and you can say, well, that doesn't matter because knight can take, this knight from c3 can take e4, but that's exactly the point. If actually it's forced now to take here with knight on e4, but now that this knight has gone away from c3, the square b5 becomes available for the bishop. So bishop to b5 is a good move now. Now if the queen moves, for example, to d4, we see that this bishop has a very important role now. It prevents white from castling. Now if white in this game doesn't castle, then this rook here will be doing absolutely nothing, while black's pieces are all easy to bring into play. So these are the consequences of e takes d5. Now in the game things happen a little different, but we got more or less the same consequences. Bishop to c5 was played by white, and now black took d takes e4. Knight takes e4 is forced, and now bishop to b5. There we are again, the same very strong move, bishop to b5. And I like very much this maneuver, this idea of taking on e4 or advancing the pawn on to e4 to actually persuade this knight to go to take there, so b5, this square becomes available. It's such an important square for a bishop here to prevent white from castling. Queen to c2 was played now, and now that the queen is on the c file, rook to c8, pinning the bishop on c5. Now knight takes f6 check, bishop takes f6, and now here white played a4. Black continued here with bishop to a6. In fact, it was also possible with the little tactic to take on a4, because if bishop takes a4, queen takes a4, black has rook takes e5. The pawn on b4 is pinned. So here white, now that the light square bishop is gone, is able to castle. And then with the rook to b5, black still has a better position, since this pawn on b4 is weak, and on the king side black has a pawn majority. So not only the material advantage but also the weakness of the b4 pawn gives black advantage here, and also it's a bishop against a knight. But let's return to the game, because here black played bishop to a6. Actually this is, I think, a very conscious choice. It has been by Anna Ushenina. That I'll go back one move. Here she had the choice between winning a pawn or making a move that retains the positional advantage. With bishop to a6 you don't win a pawn with black, but you keep your light square bishop that is so important to prevent white from castling kingside. So this is actually the important subject that I find in this in the instructive subject here, that it's about the choice between material or positional advantage. Many computers give preference to material advantage. They want to gain material, and also many amateur chess players do that. But sometimes it's really interesting to have a look if you don't win material but you choose to remain with a better position, you make your opponent's life even more hard than it would be with the material advantage variation. Well, let's continue with the game now. Knight to d2 was played, bishop to e7, the bishop on c5 is pinned, so the bishop cannot be taken on e7, knight to e4 defending c5, and now queen to c7. Actually, this move queen to c7 is not only to place another piece on the c file, that's important, but also to make the square b8 available for the other rook. So rook a to b8 is played after this, and then all the pieces of black are active. So rook to c1 was played here, and then rook a to b8. And if we look at this position right now, we see that white has a problem, a big problem here with this rook, because of the fact that white didn't castle on time. Is playing in fact with a rook that's not doing anything. Now the game continued with queen to c3, queen to b7, attacking the knight on e4, f3 to defend the knight, and now f5 threatening it with the pawn. So a knight move is forced. Knight went to f2, and here black centralized the queen with queen to d5. Pieces in the center are always very strong. Well, always, almost always. Certainly in this case, this queen on d5 is a very strong piece. Let's continue with the game. Queen to d2. Wanted to trade this queen, but missing actually a very important tactic here. And that is, after queen takes d2, king takes e2, it looks as if white is freeing himself and being able to use the other rook, but here comes a surprise, and that is the move rook takes b4. The rook on c1 is well defended by the king and the rook, so why not taking back perhaps? Well, that's exactly what white did. Bishop takes b4, and here came bishop to g5 check, and suddenly white is completely lost. There is no good move to make. Now we see how good it was not to take this pawn on a4 with this bishop, but to keep it on this diagonal, because it's looking now at these two squares. So that means that with this check, white has no good move to make. This rook here takes care of the whole c-file, so only the back rank is left over for white to move his king, and then rook takes e1 will follow. So here, after, for example, king to e1, rook takes e1 is killing. Knight to e1 is the only move, and this is simply a lost position for white. Still, this rook will not enter into the game. For example, here rook to c2 is very strong, attacking g2. If this pawn advances, then we can continue attacking with a check here. King goes to f1. Now we can do a discover check with this rook, winning a piece, for example, with a rook to b2, check with the bishop, and after the king moves, we can take the bishop on b4, and this is completely over. So this is the game that I wanted to show you, and especially that moment after the move a4. I'll go there now. So here white plays a4, and this decision in the game, this decision of not going for pawn grabbing with bishop takes a4, but remaining with this strong bishop on this diagonal, that was actually what the most beautiful decision is in this game, in my opinion. Alright, I hope you found this an interesting and instructive game, and I'll see you next time on YouTube. Goodbye.